Seagram's block of Oshawa, Ontario. I'm an idol.
Don't be scared, homie. Come on. Okay, first of all, the world is smiling at you. The wrestling business is smiling at you. And don't you frown back on it.
Surprise, surprise, motherfucker. The king is back.
The man the hour, the man with the power. Too sweet to be sour.
Dylan Bowker.
All right, I'm talking to UFC Hall of Famer, held noteworthy titles at middleweight and welterweight. It is Twinkle Toes. I'm talking to Frank Trigg. How's it going, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Now, I understand you sort of had a hard time growing up. I mean, one of 7 children, but then you discovered grappling. I think that's really cool. How did that all come about, and how was that time period like?
Well, I mean, it was just a natural progression. Where was I? I was in Kendall, New York in 6th grade. So I was like 12 or thereabouts. A buddy of mine asked me if I should join this thing called wrestling, in the wintertime. We played soccer mainly during the fall. I was like, I'll try this thing out. I fell in love with it. Had a horrible first year. Didn't do, I think I was 0-32, 0-33, and just, started loving it and kept with it and stuck with it. And then went on and continued till, I wrestled all the way through to the Olympic trials.
Yeah, and that happened in 2000, like while you'd already been going with your MMA career a little bit as well. So yeah, definitely into the wrestling there for sure. So what do you think about Bellator's process for bringing up their prospects as of late? Guys like Aaron Pico, Ed Ruth, guys like that.
Well, Bellator has a particular interesting problem where they've got great talent at the top, but they have no depth. So they have a real hard time trying to find depth. A guy like Aaron Pico is going to be a tremendous quality athlete put into their depth chart. Now, of course, we have to wait to see how he does in his debut, which is at the Madison Square Garden card, I think June 24th.
Yeah, talk about pressure, eh? Buddy's MMA debut, and he's competing on a huge event like that. I mean, and he's fighting a guy who's a pretty good amount of experience, too.
Well, you got to remember, it's Aaron Pico. Like it's not some random guy that just came off his couch.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's not some guy that's been sitting around talking about fighting for a long time and decided to start training in it. This is a guy that's a world-class athlete as a wrestler, which is the middle ground. If you look at all the guys right now, even today, they don't really talk about, superior grappling, unless you're talking about the select few of Damian Maia and a few others. You don't talk about superior striking. It's just really kind of all a blur. What you do talk about still is superior wrestling. You talk about superior wrestling, but for MMA. Now, there's a lot of guys out there that wrestled on Olympic teams and wrestle on world teams and Pan American teams that don't do very well in MMA when it comes to the fight game because they haven't adapted their wrestling for MMA. We have to wait to see what Pico's MMA wrestling is like. Now, I talked to his manager, Zinkin, and he's saying this guy's got his style. And if you look at his style as a wrestler, it actually is very adaptable for MMA, like how he rolls and what he does. It's very good for MMA to begin with. You have to make a few adjustments, learn a little bit of stand-up, like real serious stand-up. And then he can be a pretty complete all-around MMA fighter relatively quickly if he dedicates himself. We all know that Aaron's very dedicated. So it's been interesting to see a guy that's 0-0, all of a sudden he's put on this big stage. Well, he's been on the big stage before. This isn't a guy that's never been on a big stage. Like I said, he's not coming off his couch. He's a guy that's actually coming in with big stage experience, bigger stage experience than we'll even get at Madison Square Garden.
Absolutely.
He's been on a big platform than
Yeah, and he seems very confident about all of that, but I kind of wanted to talk about your first foray into MMA because it was a tournament in Texas in 1997. You beat 3 guys in one night. That sounds so just different for how MMA is nowadays. So can you take us back to that, fateful debut there in the Lone Star State?
Jeez, I can barely remember it. Who did I have? I had Joey Gilbert in the semis, and I had Ali Alilias in the finals. Ali at the time was undefeated, like 32-0. I drove all the way from Norman, Oklahoma, where the University of Oklahoma is, drove down to Amarillo for that one. There was I believe there was a USWF, so that was Evan Tanner and Steve Nelson were the promoters of it. And it was like I made $500 for the whole night. I fought 3 times and made $500.
Crazy.
And that was no food money, no gas money. Like that was it. It's $500. And if I lost any period during that time, I wouldn't have made any money at all. So losers got nothing. You either got $500 or you got nothing. That's just how it worked. And it was like for me, because I was wrestling, we'd wrestle 5-6 times in a day and have to do that again the next day in a tournament. and not make any money at all. So I was like, wow, if I have a shot to make $500, I mean, this is right up my alley. Let me go ahead and try it. And it was a lot of fun, and obviously, my career was my career. So I obviously got stuck with it. And around 2000, I realized I was much better at fighting at the time than I was at wrestling. I was never going to make the Olympic team. Just wasn't going to happen for me. So I, gave up wrestling and then went ahead and just continued with fighting.
I guess the whole wrestling thing kind of prepared you for that, because in wrestling, it's just, constant tournaments. You're wrestling multiple guys within a day anyway. I mean, Chael Sonnen seems to talk about that a fair bit, but you're also part of that legendary Rumble on the Rock tournament there. I thought that was very cool. I mean, you look at some of the guys there, like Yushin Okami, Carlos Condit, Jake Shields, Anderson Silva. What was that like to be a part of now? I mean, at the time and also now that you have the benefit of hindsight.
Well, it's kind of set up where I live now. I live in Hawaii, obviously, so currently bouncing back and forth between here and LA for work all the time. But it kind of set me up for my love of the island is really what it did, because I got to meet a lot of the fans, because in the tournament you would fight and you have a lot of time off. You kind of be there kind of hanging out. You might be there for 3 or 4 days before, and then 3 or 4 days after the fight, and then be another couple of weeks before you come back in. So it was like, it took a little bit. But when I competed against, I think I lost to Condit in that one via armbar. And that kind of was my first time I retired. So after that fight, I was like, I'm pretty much done. I don't want to fight anymore, because I already lost to Hughes the second time. So there's no purpose for me really to continue on. My big rivalry, I had lost again. So there's no reason for me to continue if I can't beat these up and coming guys. And of course, Carlos Condit went on and did what Carlos Condit did. I mean, he became an amazing athlete. At the time, we didn't know that. We didn't know how good he was going to get. We just knew how good he was at the time, and I should have won, and I didn't. And that was, pretty disheartening for me to go on. And then, of course, years later, you realize, like, geez, like the guys that were in the tournament, we didn't even know anything about Yushin Okami. Like, who cared? You know what I'm saying? Like, we didn't even care about Jake Shields at that point. We didn't care about Anderson Silva at that point. We kind of knew they were good fighters, but they weren't the great fighters they became. It was kind of one of those tournaments where, like, wow, I was in a tournament with some really good guys. Like, it was pretty amazing that BJ Penn and JD Penn were able to put that tournament together and have this fight come together. It was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, super star-studded, one of the big tournaments for sure. But you were talking about your feud with Matt Hughes there, and that did get you into the UFC Hall of Fame. So do you get a degree of solace in that, knowing that you have that Hall of Fame spot, or is there still that sore spot with the Matt Hughes situation?
Oh no, I mean, we were athletes at the time. It was competition, so you can't still be mad at the Raiders, for beating you one time in the playoffs. You're like, dude, that was years ago. Like, who cares? We're older now. We moved on. Although I do think it is kind of silly that he's thinking about having, he wants to have a comeback at this point in his career. Like, it makes no sense. You're in the Hall of Fame twice for his career and for our fight. He gets in the Hall of Fame. He's got more than enough money. Like, it's not like he has to do it for money. Like, so what's the motivation to go out there and try to continue to fight? But if he wants to do it, man, and if he's still like wanting to go to train camps and want to put his body through that heat, God bless him. He's able to do all that stuff and have that motivation to continue to do it. I would love to see him, for the old guy's sake, get back into the weight class, get a run going, and get a title, even if it's in Bellator as opposed to the UFC, just to say, hey, look, the old guys, we still have some viability. We're still pretty good at what we do. But for me personally, I have no desire to fight again. I have no desire to go back into that main set again or compete like that again. It makes no sense. But, man, if he wants to do it, good for him.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear you on that. But your fifth fight, you got a win over jiu-jitsu great Jean-Jacques Machado. And I was wondering if there was any interest in competing in that combat jiu-jitsu they've got going for EBI, or even doing submission underground with Chael Sonnen, because I've seen a couple of people get into the combat jiu-jitsu for EBI. So do either of those promotions or grappling in general interest you?
I don't necessarily even know what combat jiu-jitsu is. Like, I keep hearing stuff about it, but I don't watch grappling all that much. I watch submission underground because it interests me, but
yeah.
I mean, I'm going to open hand slap somebody and I can't hit them when they're on the ground. Like,
yeah, like
just keep beating them up. That's basically what pancration was when we first started fighting in Texas. Open hand slap, and we could knee and kick back then, but we were really restricted on our hand positioning. And it's just basically the same thing. And then when we hit the ground, it's just a grappling match. It's interesting, but I got to watch it to really understand if I want to do it. I mean, for me, it's all about money. If I'm going to do that kind of thing, it's all about money. And how will it affect me being able to ref in certain commissions? So EBI, for the most part, is done in California, and I ref the majority of my pro bouts are in California. So all of a sudden now, if I'm like striking somebody, I have to be regulated by the commission. I can't also be a referee for the commission. So then it makes it a lot more difficult for me to do what I'm trying to do with my future. It's interesting, but I got to see what the pay is. I gotta see what the rules are. Really, I really gotta sit down and look at it. And I just really haven't, because honestly, my motivation really isn't there to sit there and prove to the world, hey, I can still fight, I can still compete. The real reason why I train now is to protect my family, to protect my person. I travel a lot of really, we just got back from the Philippines, wonderful trip, amazing people, amazing culture, but it's a little bit dangerous over there. You have to be cautious. And it's always trying to be self-aware. So I'm not trying to win bouts anymore. I'm trying to stay alive and keep my family safe. That's my biggest concept at this point. So if I wanted to get into something like that, I have to change my mindset and change my gears. But who knows what the future lies? I mean, like I said, I think Matt and the rumor of Chuck Liddell wanting to come back and fight, I think that's crazy. But also too, I'm sitting here thinking about it, like, wow, those guys are older than me and my age. Like, what are they thinking about doing, coming back for? And well, maybe I could do it. And what's the money like? But those guys, they're former champs. They're going to get a ton of money. They sign with something. They're going to get a lot of money to come back. I'm going to come back. I'm going to get pittance. And for me, it doesn't make any sense financially. It just makes more sense for me to stick with my C and D level acting roles and my B level stunt roles at this point.
But yeah, you alluded to the wrestling there, or the refereeing, I should say. And I was wondering how that informed what you've been doing with mixed martial arts nowadays, because I saw a couple of your fights there in the UFC with the Sarah and Koscheck stoppages, and it seems like you sort of, took umbrage with those stoppages. So I'm wondering if you now have sort of a different perspective on things now that you were in that referee position. Like, do you sort of sympathize and maybe understand more about the referee situation and martial arts in general?
I don't sympathize. I just understand better. You don't sit around and think about cops and sympathize all of a sudden with the cops because you became a cop. You just understand the role better, understand the patrol better. You get what's going on. As a referee, I finally see what's happening there. Fighters, ultimately, at the end of the day, we're just a bunch of knuckleheads. We're stupid as shit. So what will happen is if you go in, our eye is popped out of our head. Our arm is ripped off our body. Can you continue? The doctor asks you, yes, 100% I can continue. I'm going to stay in this. Well, it's not a good idea because your eye is literally hanging out of your eye socket. Well, no, but I can still see, so I'm totally fine. I can still go. No, like fighters don't think like that. So referee is in there for fighter safety. The Matt Sarah stoppage, I was really pissed off about because he hit me and I was falling down, like I sat down because I got a flash knockout, but I was fully aware as the whole thing was happening. As soon as I hit the canvas, I'm bouncing back up again. The referee's waving it off. When I go back and look at the replay, I'm like, wow, yeah, you're right. Like that fight should have been stopped. But at the time, as a fighter, I'm like, no, there's no way. Like I'm totally fine. This is just stupid. And you're costing me, not only costing me money because I lost the fight, but you're also costing me now. It's my second fight in a row that I've lost. I'm gonna get canned out. The UFC's gonna fire me again. So this is really a big problem for me, And so it's just one of those situations where I really, now as a referee, I understand what goes on. I understand the mindset. And there's a lot of fighters out there that are pissed off at me. Like they're really mad at me because I stopped fights too early, or had to wave a fight off because of a foul, or had to do something ridiculous because of what they feel is ridiculous. But it's within the letter of the law. It's within what had happened. This is what I have to do. Now, do I still make mistakes as a referee? Absolutely. Do I have conversation with John McCarthy every single time I finish refereeing? Like I'm reffing RFA June 2nd, and at Force Shoot June 3rd, John and I will have a half-hour conversation about what happened, what went on. I'm reffing with Mike Beltran that night. After every fight, Mike and I will sit down for 35, 40 seconds and talk about what happened, what went well, what went wrong. Like we do it, Mike Bell, when I work with Mike Bell. It's what we do as a group. And we talk to John about what would happen, what goes on in his fights. And we talk to Mike what goes on in his fights. So it's not like there's, because I'm a low guy on a totem pole, I'm the only one getting spoken to. We speak back and forth to each other. Like we talk about it, different scenarios, what happened. We'll call guys. Like I've literally text John watching, and Mike, I've done with Mike Beltran as well, and with Herb Dean, where I've been watching a pay-per-view, watching them work a fight, and literally left them a text as soon as they walked down, like, hey, what was your process during this position? And literally, once they sit down in their seat and they've done their next position, what they have to do, they'll answer me back, like during the fight, hey, this is what I was thinking, this is what's going on. So we get instantaneous reaction of what is really going on inside that cage. And I hear people at home, oh, that's completely wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, look, man, the ref has the best seat in the house. They are the closest person. They see more than the camera see at home. Like you're saying, I have the best camera angle at home on pay-per-view because it shows me the best camera angle because the director's in there yelling at the guy to switch cameras to get the best angle. The referee still has a better angle than you see at home and has full knowledge of what the rules are. And the fans at home think they know. And honestly, I've talked to guys. I've got arguments at bars where guys are like, you don't know what you're talking about. You have no idea what you're talking about. No. I kind of do.
I sort of do. I'm kind of in the UFC Hall of Fame. Yeah. But no, you talked about some of your stunt work there. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
There's fighters that are in the Hall of Fame that have no understanding what the rules are. I can guarantee you There are fighters that are in the Hall of Fame that have no understanding of what the rules really are.
I believe it.
Different scenarios and different questions. They have no freaking clue. And I thought I knew. When I went to go take John's course, I was like, the first time. When I took it the first time, I was like, oh, this is going to be easy. I know everything. I got in there. I was like, holy crap. There was things that I was hiding during fights that I was doing that I thought was illegal, that was completely legal, and they totally saw it. And they're like, oh yeah, we saw it. Like, we knew you were doing it. It's totally legal. That's why we didn't stop it. And there's things I thought were legal that I just never did. That I find out later, like, no, that's completely illegal. Like, you can't do that. I'm like, holy crap! Like, I had no idea. Like, I learned a lot by taking John's reffing course. I took it the first time and I failed, and so I had to go back and take it a second time to get my certification so I could start reffing. So it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of people that have no idea what they're talking about, and corners included. Corners have no idea half the time what they're talking about.
Yeah, and you were talking about some of the stunt work you were doing earlier, and you've had some pretty big positions there. I mean, Lethal Weapon, NCIS Los Angeles, Hawaii 5-0. Are there any projects coming up that are, really exciting you that you can talk about?
Actually, Snatched just came out. It's Goldie Hawn, Amy Schumer movie, just at the movie theaters maybe a couple weeks ago.
Oh, cool.
I have a pretty significant stunt role in that as well, and a pretty good cameo role. I'm playing a Colombian Special Forces guy, so that one's pretty neat. The season finale of NCS LA, you see me for about 2.5 seconds. My beard is gone. They made me shave. For another project, made me shave. So
that's hurting. As someone who has a bit of a beard here, I don't know if you can really see it, but
yeah, I see it. Yeah.
We gotta stick together. They're hating on the bearded broadcasters here, man. It's brutal.
Yeah, it's good, probably because most of them can't grow it because of their work or what their wives say. Like, they're like, you can't let you have a beard, whatever. So
yeah.
You get mad at us. They can just casually grow a beard because we want to. So anyway, they shaved my beard off for another project I'll get to in a second, and they I get my punched in the stomach by LL Cool J and my face smashed into a parking meter as he's walking down Little Ethiopia in LA. So that just came out, and then I'm in coming out in September. They have this new television show called Inhumans that's actually going to IMAX. The first 2 episodes go to IMAX. They're condensed into one episode to make an IMAX movie that'll be released for 2 weeks. And I'm in both those episodes. Due to the NDA, I can't tell you what I was doing in that thing or what happened, but because it is on my IMDb account, you can see that I'm in the show, so I'm able to tell you that much. I'm in the show. But yeah, it's that one I'm pretty proud of. The Inhumans role I'm pretty proud of. I actually got to work with a guy that I double quite frequently, Jason Lee Hoy here on the island. We look quite similar, but in the Inhumans, you will definitely tell we look nothing alike in the show. But I double him quite a bit when he does different roles here. I'm a stunt double, so it was actually pretty cool to work with him at the same time as an actor on this particular project. So yeah, it's been pretty good, and I've got some things in the works. Hopefully, shooting some stuff with Brandon Vera is actually in Manila right now shooting a movie, and the same stunt coordinator director is getting ready to shoot another movie in September. They've asked me to be a part of it, so I'm pretty happy if that comes together. You don't really know what's coming together until you actually land. Until you get your plane ticket and you land, and then you're like, okay, now it's time to work, kind of thing. And I've got a couple of things in China. They're starting to pop their heads up, but they're still waiting on them to get signed and dealt with and negotiated, so to speak. But it's been, those are the projects right now that's coming up. And remember, all of your I'm gonna break a little bit of TV magic for you. All your TV shows that you watch in prime time are all wrapped. They all wrapped around Easter. And they don't start back up again until after 4th of July, usually like the first working Monday or Tuesday after the 4th of July, everyone comes back to work. So right now, a lot of the shows I work on, Lethal Weapon, NCSLA, Hawaii 5-0, they're all in hiatus. So everybody's off working different movies and doing different things right now to keep the ends meet in between. But we're all kind of waiting until that July 4th holiday for us to go, okay, great, now we get to go back to work again.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you have some experience fighting in Pride as well. I wanted to talk about that. I mean, you do have a samurai tat on your back, so I imagine you have the Bushido spirit there a little bit. But you always hear these zany stories in Pride about, the Yakuza involvement, big stacks of cash being handed to fighters after and all that. Do you have any interactions like that in Pride, like any weird stories like that or happenings?
Well, yeah, part of it was because we didn't trust the checks to clear. So you're not going to pay us in checks. You had to pay us in cash. And so
it's just so gangster, though, just the duffel bag with cash.
Well, pretty much, yeah, or a basket full of cash, or depending on how they were paying you, yeah. I mean, but that's how things were done back then. Like you You didn't know the exchange rate. You couldn't be sure the money was going to clear. You couldn't be, you had to be real cautious back in those days because it wasn't as regulated as it is now with commissions and the big thing with commissions is that they control the money. So the checks are given to the commissioner. The commissioner hands the checks out to you at the end of the fight. You either have your show money or your show and win money, and you get those checks at the end of it. You sign off on it. It's controlled by whatever commission you're in controls that money. So going over to Japan, there wasn't a commission. It was controlled by whoever controlled it. At the time, Misaki was the guy that controlled the money because he also controlled Pride. And we were real hesitant about, not anything against him personally, but just real hesitant about how the money was going to exchange hands.
Fair enough.
And then it became significant. Well, hey, this money kept coming in, and this is how the money worked. This is how the money is, and it became you got paid in cash. Then all of a sudden, every time you went over, even when you got a good relationship with them and you trusted the money was going to clear, they just kept paying everybody in cash. This is how they did it, and it was a good run, man. And a lot of guys made a lot of money over there, getting paid in cash and coming back over with it. It just depends on who you were and how much money you were making.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been talking about some of your fights here, and I thought it was really interesting that you got the win over Kazuo Misaki there. Now, this is something I've been thinking of lately. I think he's one of the more criminally underrated pound-for-pound fighters. I mean, he was the welterweight Grand Prix champion in Pride, beat guys like Dan Henderson and Paul Daly. So what are your thoughts on what I'm talking about there and also getting the win over a fighter like Misaki?
Well, it was pretty surreal. Remember, I had retired when I lost to Condit and then got asked, I don't know, maybe 4 months later, by TJ Thompson to come back and fight Jason Miller. And so I was like, yeah, I'll fight Jason Miller for the championship or whatever. And then fought Jason, won the title at 185 pounds for Icon. And then fought, at the time I was also commentating for Pride. So I was going back and forth to commentate not only the Pride show in the US for on Fox Sports at the time, but I was also doing the pay-per-view every month. So I was going back and forth to Tokyo every month. And then I got asked to go ahead and compete, in one of the events in Las Vegas. I was like, sure, I'll go out there and compete. And it was a big deal because that night I also commentated the rest of the main card. So I fought, second fight of the night, and then went back, showered, got dressed, came out, sat down on my seat, and commentated the whole rest of the card. And so it was a pretty big deal. It was a pretty cool deal from that mindset. And getting a win over him was pretty big for me because Dan Henderson and I trained together for a very long time, and Dan used to whoop my ass every single way. He beat me in wrestling. He would beat me in practice. He'd beat me up as I had no hope of ever beating Dan. But then I literally went and figured out how to beat Misaki using my style, my way, even though he had just beat Dan in the Grand Prix, like maybe 2 months earlier or 3 months earlier. And he was ranked the second most. He was ranked the second best guy in the weight class at the time. I forget who was number one, but he's ranked number 2. And I rolled him up for 3 rounds. Couldn't finish him. During that night, I was the only fight that went the distance. Every other single fight finished. I wasn't able to do that. I was able to put these things together and beat him just by using my own style and my own techniques. So it was a pretty big win for me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking because he sort of has like an underrated legacy in a lot of ways. Like I listed off a lot of his big wins there. He's sort of one of those guys that, people don't always bring up in that pound-for-pound conversation. But I also noticed you had a fight for Israel FC Genesis. And, I mean, I'm not going to get into the politics of it or anything, but I'm talking about just the experience of what it was like fighting in Israel and going over there. Can you speak to that? Because it sounds interesting.
It was fucking awesome. I mean,
Nice.
It was incredible. I had the best time. We went to, obviously went to the wall. We went and saw the Islamic district, went through the Christian district, went through the Jewish district. We went and saw, obviously went to the Wailing Wall. We went to, we toured Garden of the Rock. We went and saw everything. I mean, it was an amazing trip. I would go back again in a minute if anybody asked me to. If anybody wanted me to teach I would go. If you give me a reason to get over there again, I would 100% go. I loved it. I thought it was so awesome. And there are people that understand war and constant war. Not like we understand war where, our brothers and our sisters and our sons and daughters are over there fighting a war so we can maintain our style of life over there. In Israel, they're fighting a war across the street. It's 6 blocks away. The bombs are coming into the West Bank. So for them, they really understand and they know how to have a great time. And I don't care where you are in the world, because everybody goes to Israel from the rest of the world. It's this weird thing where it's kind of shunned upon in the U.S. That, you can't go to Israel. You know, you got to kind of stay away from Israel, got to stay away from the Middle East. Like, it's this whole thing where everybody else in the world kind of like, Israel's a great place to go vacation. People go to Tel Aviv and go to the nightclubs and have a great time.
Yeah, for sure. I just wanted to preface the question and not. I just wanted to preface the question and not make it seem like it was a political thing. Because I just wanted to know what the actual experience was like. Yeah.
It was incredible. I saw people over there from Colombia. I saw people over there from Prague. I met some people over there from Venezuela. Like, it was crazy the amount of different cultures that are over there, and they're not Jewish cultures coming over there. Oh, I'm going to the motherland. They were just coming over there just because Tel Aviv, and they're coming over there just because it's Jordan. They're coming over there just because the Dead Sea is there. Yeah. They're just coming over there just to visit because it's a great place to visit. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun. I had a great time, and if I ever get the chance to take my kids over there, 100% I will, because it is an amazing spot. Now, the only thing I regret is being that close to Egypt and not getting over to Egypt. And being that close to other cultures and not getting over there. I was already there. Why did I just take the hopper and hop over these other cultures? That's the only thing I really am disappointed in myself for not doing. But if I ever had a chance to do it again, 100% I would.
That's cool, man. And that sort of leads into my next question. I wanted to talk about some of the bouts I've seen you had canceled, because Jacare, you're supposed to fight him at Dream 2. You're supposed to also have a fight for Bama for the championship at one point. Are there any fights throughout your career that have even been, loosely discussed and didn't materialize that you think, oh man, I really wish I competed with them?
Now, BJ Penn and I are friends. Let me tell you that we're actually really good friends. We talk probably once a month or so. We keep up with each other. But that's the one fight I wish that we could have. It was talked about for a while that he and I would get together. Just never came to fruition. Not because I hate him and wanted to beat him up and do all this. It's just at the time they were talking about how he was the best guy. Yeah. Coming up, he was the fucking phenom. Like, the prodigy is legit. When you're talking about BJ Penn, he is legit the prodigy. And at the time, he was in his prime. I was kind of just coming out of, coming around my prime. I just want to see where I matched up with him. I would have loved to get that fight with him, and that just never materialized. It just never happened. Another fight I would have loved to do again is the GSP fight. My ankle was already blown out. If you go back and watch that fight, I shoot a double on him and he runs right over me. I couldn't drive because there was one ligament holding my ankle together, and I blow that out when I took the shot. So my ankle was completely rubberized. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't, even when I turned over, I couldn't really turn over. I had to like limp myself around because I was so beat up. I would like to go back. I'm not saying the result of that fight would have been any differently. He probably still would have beat me, but just to give him a better go, that he deserved to have a better opponent in front of him. That was one of those fights I should have not have fought, and I should have pulled out due to injury, but I didn't, because back then we just didn't pull out because of injury like they do now. And that's one fight I would love to get back, but just the way, or not get back, do it again. Just give him a better shot. It just never happened.
Yeah, and we've been talking about some fighters coming out of retirement and all that, and you also touched on GSP there. So what are your thoughts on him coming back? They were talking about the Bisping fight. That sort of seems like it's in doubt at this point. Dana White sort of talking about him getting back in the 170-pound title picture. So what are your thoughts on George's return, and is there an ideal class he should come back in, you think?
He should come back in welterweight. Like, I don't understand. Like, a lot of the other guys are like, yeah, absolutely, he should have a title fight right away coming back at 185. But he shouldn't. He's not moving weight classes in the middle of his career. He retired. He's been gone for 3 years, out for 3 years. For him to come back after 3 years and go, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm going to get a title shot now, that's ludicrous. Like, that makes no sense. Add a different weight class. Now, if he wants to come back and get a title shot back at 170 after never losing the belt, retiring after that close split with Johnny Hendricks, but still winning, as far as the scorecard, you can argue that fight either way. I totally get it. But the scorecard says, history says, GSP won that fight. He retires at that point. Now all of a sudden you're talking about he's going to come back at a different weight class, at a weight class up and get a title shot. To me, it was kind of ludicrous. It made no sense. But from a Bisping standpoint, it made great sense because I think Bisping has a really hard time with Yoel Romero. He has a really hard time with Luke Rockhold in a rematch. I think Bisping has a really hard time with anybody else in the weight class at this point. So for him to fight GSP after a 3-year layoff, that's actually pretty good. It's a big money payday. It's big dollars. People are going to be talking about it for a long time. There's going to be a lot of pay-per-view buys on it because GSP's on it. And we all know Bisping can sell a fight. That man can sell a fight. And let's not forget, for as much as I think he's going to get crushed by Yoel Romero, Bisping has gotten tremendously better in his fights. Yeah, he has gotten so much better. So, yeah, I say he's going to get beat by Yoel Romero, but what do I actually know? Like, when you really look at Bisping fights, that fight's a little bit closer than I think it would be. I think the line of that fight is Yoel Romero is a 2-1 or a 3-1 favorite on that fight. But even though Bisping's the champ, you still got to look at Bisping. Like, that man knows how to fight. And he loves to fight. And he knows how to sell the fight. So it's like that fight with GSP would have been great. But to me, really, honestly, if you look back at the records and look back at how things are going, the only thing it does is a money grab for the UFC. It's a money grab fight for the UFC. And let's be honest, Dana is tired of GSP trying to dictate. No, now it's going to be October. No, I want to fight in September. No, I want to push it. And Bisping is like, why aren't we fighting in July? You announced you're coming back. Like, why are we going to wait? So real quick, I want to talk about Mayweather and McGregor. Whether that fight happens or not, I really don't care. It's a stupid fight. I'm going to pay attention to all the hype. I'm going to pay attention to all the lead up. I'm going to pay attention to all that stuff.
Oh, yeah, it's a circus attraction. Yeah, it's just a total circus attraction. It's someone getting shot out of the cannon and going through the flaming ring.
Yeah, it's kind of stupid. It's all going to be built up to the fight actually starts. Then we're all going to be let down again, like we were with Mayweather and Pacquiao. We were all built up with a lead up. We finally got to the fight and we're like, this is just dumb. Mayweather's just that much better than Pacquiao. Why are we watching it? It's going to be worse with Condit. I get he believes in himself. Love him for that. Love his hype. It's just you're fighting a man in his realm. It doesn't make any sense. But the one thing you have to understand about Mayweather, once he announces the fight, when he says, yeah, I'm going to fight, or this fight is on, or this fight is happening, once he makes that announcement, you're 10 to 8 weeks away from that fight happening. Now, I love that. When he comes out and says, hey, this fight's going to happen, he's been in training camp already for a month. He just hasn't been talking about it. He's already been out there, sign the paper. Oh, yeah, we're trying to negotiate, but he's being a tough negotiator. We're trying to get blood draw. When are we going to do drug testing? We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And I get it. The whole time he's in training camp. And everyone else is thinking he's just sitting at home, eating food and drinking and hanging out with his friends at the nightclub and not doing anything. He's already in camp. Then he makes the announcement, we've signed, this fight's going to happen. Boom, you're 8 weeks away. GSP comes out, makes his announcement, what are we talking about, January? He made the announcement he's coming back?
Yeah, it was clumsily handled. They did a press conference and everything for it, and now the fight's in question. Yeah, the whole thing's just ridiculous. But we're kind of talking about theatrics here and, over the top and all that. You were actually involved in pro wrestling for a little bit, which I found to be interesting. You were involved in TNA, and you had that match at the No Surrender pay-per-view with AJ Styles. So what was that whole experience like? I mean, not just the night itself, but just the build-up and, cutting promos on TV and getting to experience things like that.
Loved it. I got to work with, at the time, I got to work with one of the guys I respect a lot in pro wrestling, Samoa Joe, UPW, Rick Bassman's UPW, Ultimate Professional Wrestling, was in my gym at the Raw Training Center in El Segundo, California. And so I got to watch guys like the Prodigy who went on and he became John Cena. I got to watch guys like Samoa Joe go on to become Samoa Joe. So he actually asked me, hey, do you want to come commentate this event for us that is me versus Kurt Angle? When I got there, they all of a sudden realized, Vince Russo realized, holy crap, you look a lot like Kurt. Like, maybe there's an angle here. And then they put me together with...
we got to get you on TV, bro. You look just like Kurt Angle, bro. You're just getting the Vince Russo thing going on.
When I see my beard, even now, like I saw a photo of Kurt in Vegas at the MMA Junkie Studios with Gorgeous George, and I had to do a double take. I was like, because I was just there doing co-hosting that show. I was like, hold on, is that me? And I was like, holy crap, that really is Kurt. It really still look a lot alike. If I shave, we look exactly alike still. And it was a great time because I got to actually hang out with Kurt. Him, of course, going to Clarendon University, being a wrestler, being 4 years older than me, being an Olympic champ and a world champ at the time. I totally idolized him because I was coming from upstate New York. I was right behind him. I got a chance to be his mini-me. I got a chance to work with AJ Styles, got to know him inside the ring and outside the ring. And now I'm watching AJ. He's over. He's the man right now in WWE. And it's incredible to watch these guys and be a part of that. It was probably the most fun and the most challenging time I ever had in pro wrestling when I was doing that. And I wish I could have stuck with it, but it just management conflict with my fight manager and Dixie Carter and the TNA group at the time. It just didn't happen. I couldn't continue it.
Could that happen in the future, though? Because you're talking about maybe competing in like some jiu-jitsu or something like that. Would you maybe be interested in pro wrestling then? I mean, it's obviously not light on the body, but maybe something. Because a guy like Matt Riddle, for instance, I mean, he's been doing quite well in his transition from MMA to pro wrestling now, and he's lighting the world on fire there.
Yeah, but he's also super young. Matt's still young. But remember, I'm doing stunts. I'm getting shot and blown up, and I got to hit the ground 18 times and go through things. And
you're taking your bumps too, for sure.
On my NCSLA. It was and God bless Todd Smith, LL Cool J. Todd does a great job when we work together. We work together a couple, 3, 4 different times, 5 times actually. We work together, and he does a great job of making sure that he lets me react my own way, lets me use my body the way I want to react. He just kind of guides me into it, very much like a pro wrestler, where we both know he's about to drop kick me, but he's not actually kicking me with the drop kick. He's letting me take the bump. And so he's very good like that, where he's very soft. And so I can do 8, 10, 12 takes. Fortunately with Todd, we usually have to do 4 takes, and that's it. It's not a 12 take day. We get 4 takes in, we're done, we're good, and we're having a good time, and we're moving on to the next scene. And Troy Brown, the stunt coordinator, does a great job of making sure we're all up to speed. We know exactly where everything's going to be. We walk it a bunch of times before we do it. If pro wrestling came calling and said, "Hey, look, we want you," I would have to go find Scott Diamore, my old coach, up there in Winnipeg, Canada, and I have to start training again, because it's one of those things that, yeah, it looks great on TV. Yeah, I can kind of do it. I can kind of pull it off. But you really got to know what you're doing when you get in there. It's just like stunts. You have to go practice. You'd have to go back in and go practice. But I would, if somebody called me and said, "Hey, look, we want you to come in and do this match, and we want you to start training again," I would talk with my wife and be like, "Hey, look, I got to go up and get a hold of Scott, and I got to go up there and do some intense training with him for a couple weeks and figure out my match, and then go in and go do it." I would 100% go do it.
Well, that's really cool to hear, man. I think that's super, super interesting there. And the USADA testing nowadays, I mean, that's been doing a better job of cleaning up the game. I remember you talking about how you came from a background where a lot of the guys were on drugs all the time. But you had a recent turnaround on marijuana specifically, talking about CBD and the holistic properties of that. So can you talk about that? I mean, you weren't necessarily the biggest fan of cannabis prior to, recent times, from what I understand.
I'm that kid that was like, the stoners were over there and the jocks were over here.
Yeah.
And I was with the jock sign. This is the way it worked. And I would see these guys, amount to nothing, and they couldn't do anything. And a buddy of mine was a complete stoner in high school in upstate New York. Now lives in Portland and is a multimillionaire because of it. He went and got a business degree, went on and got his master's, the whole time being a pothead, and turns around and all of a sudden he's a multimillionaire. I'm like, what the hell is this stuff going on? Well, then honestly, there was, and I hope, I'm probably gonna get in trouble, but I hope Elaine doesn't mind. Elaine McCarthy, she has a couple of health issues that she uses CBD and cannabis to help her pain management. And Jill and my wife and her are very close. And so she was talking. I was on a lot of medication for high blood pressure, obviously all the pain from all the surgeries and all the injuries and all the arthritis I have. I was on a lot of different medications that were really messing up my liver. And it was becoming an issue where my doctor here at the Universal Men's Clinic, Dr. Akaki, was like, "Look, your liver enzymes they're still normal, but they're high normal. We got to start getting these things checked out." So Jill started looking through all my stuff and going, "Hey, look, this is the first side effect in every single drug you're taking is liver damage. Like, that's the first side effect. You're taking 4 things that all give you liver damage. So what are we going to do?" I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm going to curb my drinking. I'm going to stop drinking as much as I drink, alcohol-wise, and I'm going to stop taking all these Western medications. What am I going to do now for pain?" So she gives me all the studies on CBD. She gives me all the studies. And thank God I have a really good friend here, Dana, who runs the Hawaiian Cannabis Care here in Hawaii. And I'm like, "Look, man, I'm not for this. I don't particularly like it, but I also don't particularly understand it. So let's sit down and have a conversation." And he took me through the science of it. He's leading the way to get cannabis dispensaries legalized here in Hawaii. And he's the guy that's helping write the law for how the dispensaries have to be regulated and have to be used and have to be done. And his facility is already a full-blown dispensary. It's just he can't open it yet to the public because of the legality that's going on right now. Actually, I have a meeting with him on Saturday afternoon to discuss it more. And CBD oil has been a game changer for me as far as my pain management and being able to deal with my ADD and be able to deal with my high blood pressure and my eating habits. Like, it's been a huge deal for me. I just reposted a note from or an interview from Bass Rutten, who was talking about he used CBD to get off opiate. He was, from his neck surgery, he was getting addicted to opiates.
Yeah, he's a big advocate for CBD as well. Yeah, absolutely. It's good to see that open-mindedness, because you're talking about how this is a long-held, opinion of yours that, oh, the jocks are over here, stoners are over there. And not that many people can, get beyond these long-held perceptions and beliefs that they have of certain things. So that's cool.
Yeah, I really had no choice. Like, it really became a health issue. What am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do to keep my quality of life? I don't want to live long enough to see my kids graduate college. I want to live long enough to see my great-grandkids graduate high school. So how do I do that? How do I live that long? How am I going to live into my 90s and be not just live in my 90s and be in a bed and not be able to function? I want to be up running around and moving. I'm not going to be running a marathon by any means, but I just definitely want to be up, active and being like that grandpa. It's like, oh my God, look at me still running around. He's still doing things. Like, I want to be that guy. So for me to do that, I've got to take care of my health starting now. In my 40s. So that's what I started doing, and man, it really has been a game changer. Like, it's really gotten me rethinking. The problem is I travel to a lot of foreign countries where, like in the U.S., CBD oil is completely legal in all 50 states. So I can travel with it. It's not a problem. But when I travel out of the country, it's not necessarily legal in a lot of places. So I have to be careful where I travel with it from. And that becomes the time where I'm like, wow, like what am I going to do now? I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks in wherever country. What am I going to do? For my pain management when I'm gone. What am I going to do for my ADD when I'm gone? And that's the things I really have to start researching and paying attention to, which has also made me more knowledgeable of what goes on in the cannabis cannabis throughout the world, like what it does and how it works. And every culture, every country has a different view on it. So you have to be really careful how you do things with it.
Yeah, in Japan, aren't they really much against it? Like, don't they consider it like a high narcotic where it'd be a huge offense?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a huge offense. You get caught with a little bit. Like, I think the rules might change a little bit. My understanding is if you get caught with a little bit, it's mandatory jail time. Like there's no way around it. It's mandatory jail time and or a fine on top of that. There's no way you can't get around it. They equate to almost being as bad as heroin, having a bunch of heroin on you.
Oh yeah, they've got that Jeff Sessions mentality over there for sure. But you've been really good with your time, man. Anything you want to add as we're wrapping up here?
No, nothing at all. Just thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's been great. Sorry I missed you on. We're supposed to do this on Saturday. I apologize. I missed you. I didn't check my email.
Oh yeah, no, I got the message and everything, and yeah, okay. I understood you lost your phone. So no, it's no worries, man. I mean, we got to do it now, right? So there you go. I appreciate it.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate the getting things done later. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries, man. All the best. Enjoy the rest of your night, man.
Thanks. You too. Take care.
Peace.